Hey you guys, good morning. So there's a couple of things that I saw this morning. You guys maybe saw this yesterday. Some of the states have turned gray. What is this guy's name? Dr. Taylor? Okay. This person, I've started to watch this person because he has he has some information that's pretty interesting right here. Is that even CNN has now pulled back Arizona and said that Arizona is gray. Now, Alaska, we all know, only gets 3 votes. But Alaska's been red, like Trump is way ahead in Alaska. So I'm not sure why they're keeping it gray, but so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, 5 gray. This one I think is already, I don't know why they're showing this. So there is some evidence of voter shenanigans. Okay, so I'm watching him, and when you go here, it just shows right here that there is like I guess a public service message. But when you go to Google, it's like not showing the same graphs. Let me see if I press this, what it's going to show. Oh, I guess it is still showing it. It's still showing him as 290, which I don't believe is true. But CNN pulled back Arizona, and, these states are now in play. There's some suspicious things going on. Okay, some hocus pocus with the software, and there's a software thing where it looks like all the votes for Trump would flip to Biden, but none of the votes for Biden would flip to Trump. So it looks like it was geared toward one goal, which was getting Biden in there. So now even Biden's legitimate votes seem strange. Robust safeguards help ensure the integrity of elections and results. So Arizona and Georgia are toss-up again. He's getting a lot of views, but he's very positive that this is interesting right here. Okay, so Attorney General William Barr approves fraud investigation. I mean, we all kind of knew this was going to happen. I mean, they did the same thing, with the Gore campaign. George Bush sued in the Supreme Court because there was some kind of voter fraud. And Al Gore still won the popular vote, but Bush won the Electoral College. This is, I've watched her in a bunch of ways. She's been doing a great job.
This election is not over. Far from it. We have only
Kayleigh
begun the process
McNanny.
of obtaining an accurate, honest vote count. We are fighting for the rights of all Americans.
Mickany? I don't know how
who
to
want
say
to
her
have
name.
faith and confidence, not only in this election, but in the many elections to come.
So, few Republicans have acknowledged the victory, and some, including Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, have rallied behind Mr. Trump's efforts to fight the election results. On Monday, Mr. Barr authorized the Justice Department to investigate substantial allegations of voter irregularities and election fraud. Somebody posted something about the Sharpie markers, saying that the Sharpie markers, they trip up the machine so the machine can't read them, and they spoil the vote. And this woman was asking about the Sharpie markers, and this woman's like, well, we used to not use them because it would trip up the machine or whatever. So it's pretty obvious that they know that it trips up the machines. I'm not sure why it does, but I think it's because of the bleed through where the lasers from the front, reading it. If they're also reading something from the back, it just negates the vote. So, in a memo to U.S. lawyers obtained by the Associated Press, Mr. Barr wrote that investigations may be conducted if there are clear and apparent credible allegations of irregularities that, if true, could potentially impact the outcome of a federal election in an individual state. Election officials from both political parties have publicly stated that voting went well. International observers also confirmed that there are no serious irregularities. But what about the observers what about the observers from the other side? Like we wanted to observe and they weren't letting people in. On Monday night, legal challenges have been dismissed in battleground states like Georgia and Wisconsin. On Monday night, the Justice Department's top prosecutor for election crimes said that he would step down from that post in response to the Attorney General's memo, according to an email he sent to colleagues and obtained by the AP. Biden campaign lawyer Bob Bauer said Mr. Barr's memorandum authorizing investigations will only fuel the specious, speculative, fanciful, or far-fetched claims. The federal agency that needs to greenlight the beginnings of the transition of power held off on taking that step. So he pressed forward with plans to build his administration, assembling a team of experts to face the surging COVID-19 pandemic. But the federal agency that needs to greenlight the beginnings held off, said no. And the White House moved to crack down on those not deemed sufficiently loyal, such as Defense Secretary Mark Esper, as Mr. Trump continued to refuse to concede the race. Mr. Trump remained out of sight of the White House, with conversations ongoing about how the defeated president would spend the upcoming... I don't... You know what I think about this? Is that Biden is actually Kamala Harris, right? Kamala Harris will be president. That is just my opinion. Biden is not the powerhouse behind any of this. To me, it's Kamala Harris. But I still think that Trump has some legal things up his sleeve that we're going to see, what happens. I mean, remember that Al Gore was the president for 36 days, and he even gave an election speech like accepting, and then he had to come out and concede after. So the possibility of more campaign-style rallies are discussed as Mr. Trump tries to keep his supporters fired up despite his defeat. See, they just keep, they're literal, it's literal programming. So you can't watch this, can't watch this. The removal of Mr. Esper, the Pentagon chief, was expected by some aides to be the first of several firings by Mr. Trump. Others believed to now be vulnerable include FBI Director Christopher Wray, CIA head Gina Gaspel, and infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci. All right. I mean, basically, who won the election? Who won the election, you guys? Like, in reality, who won the election, if you really want my opinion, is Trump. But who won the election in terms of what, you know, what the public thinks is the mainstream media. The mainstream media has the power to change your mind about things that you observe and see. And it is very disturbing when it's clear to everyone watching, except those that don't want to believe in it, that something strange happened. We might not know exactly the details of the strangeness. Something did happen. And then we've got Dr. Taylor Marshall showing, again, even CNN is showing this state as gray, meaning they called it too soon. It's not over here. The islands are blue. That doesn't that does not surprise me, the way they're using these islands. But this is interesting here. And he said CNN also did this, also showed this. Also, I think people are really upset at Fox. Fox started calling things that we didn't think were over, and then kind of got behind the other, instead of being a staunch supporter of Trump, seemed to kind of crawl onto the other bandwagon, which I thought was weird. And I think anyone watching would also think it's weird. But these are just things up in the air right now, and we do have some people that are going to fight, and Attorney General Barr has claimed we're allowed to fight, we're allowed to investigate it, which is great news. So we need to investigate Pennsylvania, and then we need to go to the other states. But Pennsylvania comes first, because if you guys weren't watching, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overruled the law. And you have to go by the law of the land. You can't just overrule it in the middle of an election. But they did. So I think it was in the middle of the election, but it might have been at a different time. But I think it happened right in the middle, where they said, oh, yeah, no, these votes that were nowhere, that all of a sudden showed up, are allowed to be counted, which I thought was pretty weird. But if you guys want to stay positive, please watch Dr. Taylor Marshall, because he's positive. He's positive for Trump, and I think some of the media is also conceding that they made a call that was wrong. CNN on Arizona. Let's see what they say. Yeah, see, they've got it gray too. CNN went gray on Arizona. So I think there's something missing over here that's gray, but